want to do is try and avoid the delusion that Beeson was talking about there in the last one. And I think whether you fall elemental or detrimental, making sure that you use resources that we have a scarcity of, whether it's things or people. And people, I would make the argument, are our most important resource. And kind of the things that we've looked at, and this is done as we've worked through some stuff within our system, and things that you might be able to take home. So what we're very quickly, and I want to take a moment and say thank you to Deputy Chief Carl Lisselhard, Captain O'Brien, my sharing captain, Lieutenant Kyle Henson, who's our professional development, and driver Hiron is here, and also Captain's nice wife, Jill, who came all the way down from Albuquerque. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate your support. Very quickly, overview on Albuquerque Fire. We're about 700 uniformed personnel, about 220 of us are ALS providers, about 900,000 population in the greater metro area, 81,000 calls, and graciously estimating greater than 80% of our calls in 2012 were for EMS, and it's actually north of that, as I think most of your experiences would relay. The MPDS codes, which the good Dr. Clausen said, we were the first uniform fire dispatch certified dispatch group in the country when they started that a long time ago. Those are our breakdowns for the deltas and the echoes. About 20% of our calls, and about 36% of them included the Charlies when you threw them in there for 2012. We're an ALS fire-based first response. We are not transport primarily. We do have a working agreement. 22 stations, 19 rescues, you can see that. One EMS QA captain per shift. I'll say that again, one EMS QA captain per shift, not per district for us with the 4 battalion chief officers. So we're a little light on the people. ALS or BLS Fire, because we have BLS engines in current, and then we have an ALS transport agency who works in conjunction with us, Albuquerque Ambulance. So when you look at what is the norm? What is the norm for first response from a fire standpoint or ALS response? And a recent Eagle survey kind of asked this very nicely, and as I can tell, kind of like politics, it's all local. These were the responses that we got back from the group of Eagles. So two paramedics in a basic or an intermediate, 2 paramedics on an ALS call, whatever that might be. One or 2 paramedics, 3 or 4 EMTs on ALS engine companies, 2 paramedics and a basic on an ambulance, a paramedic quick response vehicle, 2 paramedics and 2 EMTs on an ambulance, 4 to 6 paramedics and 2 to 4 EMTs on 9 echoes. I want that system, right? That's a lot of bodies. But you can see that there's no real standardization. And if you throw in there, what do you do with an FPA 1710 about the ALS 2 paramedic response issue? So there's no real good standard for us to look at. So our goal, and the things that we looked at from an internal standpoint and with the fire administration, was to better utilize our ALS staff so that we have at least ALS knowledge. And I use knowledge because Beeson has talked about this before in the previous things. It's not the interventions and the skills. It's the knowledge that ALS providers bring that makes a difference, all right, and can help direct care. So it's not the things that we do, as Aunt Debbie was talking about in terms of pediatric intubation and all those things. It's what we might not need to do anything of other than think for a moment. And I want to make sure that we have that knowledge, that we can build some redundancy for our districts where we have maybe more than one call popping, and I'm sure no one has a problem with growing call volumes, right? You see a show of hands who's got all the resources you possibly need to cover all of your possible responses. That's what I thought. And really what it does boil down to is customer service, providing the best care to the citizens that we are obligated to provide a response to and provide good outcomes and help them. And so what it is not, it's very important. Know your audience. I'm not saying that we need fewer medics. Now, it appears that the good Dr. Kessig has more people that he knows what to do with on a regular basis from his talks this morning. I'm saying it, and I want you to look at it. Let me say it again, bold with caps lock on, okay? Not saying that we need fewer paramedics. Is anybody having an easy time keeping up with retirements and replacing folks as they retire? Because as the para changes have affected us, people are getting out. Just maintaining the status quo is difficult enough, all right? Because what I don't want to do is be that person, all right? You need to know from a medical director perspective where you want to be, and inside the circle of trust makes it easier to affect change and make sure that folks will at least work with you. So if you look at it, and we look at cardiac arrest a whole bunch and say, well, how many do we actually need? Or how many paramedics, and each paramedic needs to see X number of cardiac arrests over a time to maybe affect the best outcome? And there's some information that's actually out there that I think that shows that where we are right now, if we better utilize some resources, probably just about right. This is back in '06, Sayer and his group, and he showed the percent survival to discharge from a cardiac arrest has a sweet spot. When you so many annual cases per year per medic, and you'll notice there at about 2.26, you see the greatest likelihood of survival of discharge. And what we've been able to show when I calculated our numbers is we're right at about 3 or so we're right at that sweet spot. So if you can better utilize what we've got, perhaps we can use that better. But we need more medics, right? I've heard this a lot. We need more medics on the scene, doc. We need to get things done quicker. We'll have fewer errors if we have more ALS providers right there. We sure about that? Has anybody ever looked? So if you take some information that we've been able to look at here, so 1 paramedic versus 2 paramedics on scene, Kelly and Carol in the Emergency Medicine Journal note 2, about 1,537 time critical cases. Mixed crews actually had shorter scene times and able to affect change and get off the scene quicker than an ALS crew, almost a minute and a half if you look at that. What about cardiac arrest, right? Because simulated cardiac arrest is where that money is. We really, and that's what we really focus on. The group here, you probably recognize one of those names, Dr. Slovis, PC back in 08. 2 groups of both paramedic, and a paramedic and a basic. The 2 paramedic groups actually had more errors and were no quicker with more interventions, but they were quicker with endotracheal intervention. But as the growing body of knowledge states, I don't necessarily know that that's something that we need to hang our hat on in terms of outcomes and stuff like that. So, are we looking at this wrong? Is it a square peg into a round hole and a big hammer? So, if you really look at it and you want to look at how we want to better affect it, the sticky wicket is how. Because what works for us in Albuquerque is going to be very, very different from perhaps what might work in Dallas or what might work in Cincinnati or other areas. I think if you determine what works best for your system, if you've got lots of manpower and a better way to spread those resources around, use data and make sure that it's a patient-driven outcome decision. And then the things that don't involve me is who goes to what seat, because that really does boil down to a labor management issue and making sure that everybody is on board, and lots of discussion about how you might change your staffing patterns and how you go about providing care to affect the best outcome. And so again, right, better utilizing a limited resource, it's the knowledge and it's the people that are going to affect the change for us and help us provide better care. And we can't mint people any quicker. If we can't keep up with attrition and retirement, it's very difficult to expand an available resource for us. Use the knowledge, hang our hat on the knowledge moving forward, because it's the knowledge that will differentiate, not the skills, in what we're going to be able to do. Build some redundancy for us, which is a big thing, so that we have the ability to provide multiple ALS calls in the same district for us. And really, if you look at it and boil it down to making sure that you're providing the best care to the customer and using the science to drive that and the data and the outcomes is what you're going to make sure that you're able to most affect the best good. And I'd like to say is always make sure you never know where you might be and who was in the room before you. So pay attention when you're out there, and this was a real sign hanging in my hospital. I'm not sure what they were doing in that cafeteria room beforehand, but and with that, thank you for your time. I appreciate the opportunity. If there are any questions at all, I'd love to take them out.